Greetings again, Tubineros. What's a rightist/libertarian case without a Nazi strawman? About as useful as a snowman in July, but that doesn't stop them from trying to build them. I have here an article published in the Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons by its recent past president, Dr. Lee Heeb, MD. Before I introduce it, let me give a shout out to YouTube user Inyanovich1980, hope I'm giving that the correct Serbo-Croat inflection, who sent me the article. And first, let me give some background on the prestigious sounding Association of American Physicians and Surgeons who funded this journal. The AAPS was founded in 1943 for the express purpose of defeating any proposed government-run or financed health system or program. It's played a crucial role in keeping public health in private hands for 70 years. Some battles it's won, like defeating the Clinton program back in the 90s, and others it's lost, like Medicare and Medicaid. Little by little, its libertarian attitudes are seeping into the mainstream. The gist of its philosophy is cash-only medicine, although its stated philosophy is omnia pro agroto, meaning all for the patient. That is, those patients who can pay whatever a physician cares to charge. They demonstrate this by arguing that Medicaid and Medicare are evil and immoral, by insisting there is no fundamental right to medical care, and requiring its members to sign a so-called Declaration of Independence, pledging they will not work with Medicare, Medicaid, or even HMOs. It also opposes practice guidelines, abortion, over-the-counter contraceptives, and, for the record, also climate change science, the Food and Drug Administration, gun control, and peer review panels. Think of Glenn Beck in a doctor's smock instead of a straitjacket, and you've got it right. This journal also made false claims on the number of leprosy cases brought into the U.S. by illegal immigrants. And in 2007, the AAPS legal team went to bat for William Hurwitz, an internist in Virginia who was given almost 5 years in federal prison for prescribing excessive doses of narcotic drugs following the testimony of 16 former patients. Remember this in the article to follow. This was written, as I stated, by the association's past president, Lee D. Heeb, MD, an orthopedics and spinal surgeon. She states the government has no right to involve itself in the practice of medicine. Another straw man argument, as nowhere does anyone in the U.S. advocate intervening in medical practice, but rather an oversight of pricing, prescription safety, and the legal rights of patients, none of which has a thing to do with a physician's professional diagnosis or course of treatment per se. Anyway, Dr. Heeb's article was The Lessons of Karl Brandt. At least our straw man has a name. It appeared in the AAPS Journal of Spring 2011. Dr. Karl Brandt was Hitler's chief doctor of the Third Reich, the originator of the T4 euthanasia program. He was also instrumental in saving precious medical supplies and beds during the war by sacrificing the lives of useless patients in favor of wounded combat soldiers. Brandt was accused and sentenced for crimes against humanity at the special Nuremberg doctors' trial and subsequently hanged. According to Dr. Heeb, Brandt was a good man trapped in an evil state medical system which began not with Hitler, but with the Kaiser's state-run welfare medical insurance system. State mechanisms for inspection and regulation of public health and medical practice led in the long run to forced sterilization, euthanasia, and genocide, the equivalent of Sarah Palin's death panels. Well, Brandt broke with Hitler and was sentenced by the Third Reich to be executed, saved by the war's end, and then delivered to the Allies for trial and execution. And on Brandt's prosecution team was Dr. Leo Alexander, who interviewed Brandt extensively, as well as all of the doctors' trial defendants for the U.S. Office of Chief of Counsel for War Crimes. According to Dr. Heeb, Leo Alexander is quoted as saying, "We should never let doctors work for the government again, because it was not the Nazi doctors who were evil, mind you, but the fact that they worked for the government." I don't know if the mine quote is accurate. I wasn't able to check her cited source, but I did find Dr. Alexander quoted elsewhere as saying to Dr. Brandt, "You are surely a man who has a deeper understanding and have sided with one side only. That is perhaps your personal tragedy, that you were committed to one idea." Alexander also wrote after the trials, "Science under dictatorship becomes subordinated to the guiding philosophy of the dictatorship," which I suppose could apply to private dictatorships as well as public ones. But for the AAPS, government medicine, and only state medicine, equals mass murder and the abandonment of all professional humanity. Only the UK, Canada, France, Cuba, Sweden, and Russia have had public medicine for generations. These are quite different societies with quite different social systems, without any mass medical murders that I'm aware of, though Jewish doctors were killed by Stalin because they might engage in state medical murder. So take heart, Dr. Heeb. She concludes with the last straw. Finally, at some point, it is time to get off the runaway bus. Imagine today if all the orthopedists in America tomorrow stopped caring for Medicare patients. It might bring down an intrinsically bad system. But could we deprive the patient in front of us just to make the point? The time to get off the buses before it picks up speed. Today, we as physicians and surgeons are increasingly becoming government doctors. We are given guidelines, which then are translated into dicta of cookie-cutter medicine. We are expected more and more to work for the greater collective good, and not just to consider our patients. We are facing cost-benefit analyses in the rationing of care. We are on the bus and has left the terminal. Will we get off in time, or will we ride it over the cliff as Karl Brandt did? So, with a complete and quite predictable leap of logic, we go from the T4 euthanasia program and mass cleansing of diseased populations to Medicaid. But how does Dr. Brandt differ in spirit from the AASP? What's the difference between putting the incurably ill out of their misery or denying them treatment altogether because they can't pay for it up front? None morally or ethically that I can see, nor can I see any difference between seeing Jews as a diseased race or scapegoating alien migrants as leprosy-bearing invaders, or between convicted malpractitioners like Dr. Hurwitz, or would-be Dr. Hurwitz, and Dr. Brandt. One-dimensional medical ideals seem to come as readily to AAPS members as to state physicians of the Third Reich. Thus, if Brandt were any American physician, I can see the AASP legal team defending him against unwarranted federal intrusion into his private professional ethics. If he truly believes it's in his patient's best interest to be put out of misery rather than burden society with higher taxes to maintain an unworthy life, then he'd be a man of conscience, upholding the highest ideals of market medicine, wouldn't he? Hippocrates surely didn't say do what's right for the state or the insurance company at the expense of your patient. But he assuredly didn't mean to turn away the sick because they can't pay blood money for their health and lives, to destroy their life savings, burden their children with debt, or ruin their peace of mind. In fact, I made a video a whole while back in which Hippocrates is quoted as saying the first rule, the golden rule of medicine, is do your patient no harm. Well, if Dr. Brandt failed in that oath, so does the for-profit American medical system. Rather than undo those advantages that have made it less harmful to patients, the rights of the patient to safe, professional, affordable care and treatment must be made uppermost, with the consent of physicians and surgeons, or without. I was afraid of this. Hello, Dr. Schweitzer? Who were you, one of those German Nazi physicians escaping to Argentina? Oh, Albert Schweitzer. The man who went into French colonial Africa and treated all those third-world babies whose parents were too ignorant to pay? Yeah, you were the guy who said, our culture divides people into two classes. Civilized men, the title bestowed on the persons who do the classifying, and others who have only the human form who may perish or go to the dogs for all the civilized men care. Well, we know that a man with that kind of class struggle attitude would never have been allowed into the USA to practice medicine, even for cash only. I mean, what MRI clinic can make a buck with someone like you in charge? But then you did attend the same Volksschule in Mulhausen and Alsace-Lorraine as Dr. Brandt. So, according to Dr. Heeb's logic, you must have been a Nazi state health doctor too. Hold on. I've got another call on the line. Hello? The Wizard of Oz. You want to give the Strawman some brains? Well, I'm afraid Dr. Brandt's deceased was. Oh, for Dr. Heeb.